All right, we are going to go back to Mike O from that chapter and let's see what he has in store for us on this next one. Like I said, I've fallen behind, so I'm just trying to catch up. So let's see here. Did that one, so that was the latest. With that chapter, lifestyle, biography, and net worth. Yeah. Money matters. Okay. I don't dig in people's personal business. I don't really care how much money they have, this or that, but let's get into this. Staging home invasion to cover a horrific crime.
You should have kicked the door to make it. Well, I'm just saying, he's ransacked their house. And you're probably going wishing you would have now.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, the story I have for you today, it is all about family. None of it is positive. But is it ever in my old videos? This is a story of bitterness, of like throwing the ultimate tantrum, of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which when you think about it is kind of like the most disturbing idiom of all time. Iowa? That's where we're going today. This is a story set in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and it's all about the Jackson family. The Jacksons were a family of 4, and this story, it's super reminiscent of Chandler Halderson or Grant Amato. If you know those two stories, you've probably got a good idea of where this story is going, let me tell you. See, here we have a man, a boy really, a baby boy with a boo-boo on his little foot. Couldn't have been him though, right? I don't think he has it in him. That's what he said, but it's not what everybody else said, including yours truly and maybe even you, possibly by the end of this video. And for a second, my friends, let me just take a sweet little moment to do a little bit of self-promotion, because I have an announcement for y'all. So to cut to the chase, I'm sure you've all noticed how back in November I went to one That Chapter video a week, which I've been doing pretty much till now, and will continue to do. But the reason why I've been doing that is because I'm finally very happy to announce to you the That Chapter podcast. I'm so excited about this. Okay, well, first of all, what is it? I hear you barking, big dog, let me tell you. A podcast. With me telling you, the kind of stories, true crime stories I usually do. But also not, because I'm going to be telling all sorts of other stories I could never tell on YouTube, but I've always wanted to tell. So I'm talking like crazier plots, horror stories, ghost stories perhaps, with a few guests. Maybe, dark history, historical crimes, and historical gruesomeness, and all of that story, crazy stuff. It'll be all sorts of stories, from ones I have previously made videos about. I want to go over some of my favorites, some oldies but goldies, but they'll all be freshly retold, with all sorts of updates if there have been updates, but then a whole heap of brand new stories from all periods that I'm so excited to tell you about. For example, one of the more recent podcast episodes tells the story of the Harp brothers and the Mason of the Woods, and these were serial killers during the colonial days, shortly after the American War of Independence, and they butchered their way across the frontiers of Kentucky and Tennessee, up to all sorts of horrific shit before meeting their own gruesome end. And it's twice a week. So going forward, there will be 3 pieces of That Chapter content every week. Monday, podcast. Tuesday, video. Friday, podcast. So please check out the That Chapter podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, on Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And I hope you like it, because I really enjoy doing it. Now, let's get back to the story that I'm telling you in this old video, and that is the insane lies of Alexander Jackson. Let's give it a go. So this old story takes us to eastern Iowa, to Cedar Rapids, home to about 130,000 people. It's a relatively safe city, and what's the biggest employer, I hear you ask? Why? Corn, of course! Well, here's some kernels for you, and that's the Jackson family, who lived at 4414 Oak Leaf Court Northeast, in northern Cedar Rapids across the Cedar River. Lovely neighborhood. And according to Realtor.com, it looks like this. It's also off market. Good luck getting it back on the market when I tell you what
That's
happened
it?
in there. Godspeed, realtor. Because it was there that on the 15th of June 2021 at 8:23 a.m. a 911 call was made from that house to the Cedar Rapids Police Department.
Someone broke into our house. Our address is 4414 Oak Leaf Court, Northeast. I've been shot. My other family member's been shot. I need help immediately. I've been shot in the foot. Someone broke in.
Okay.
I've been shot.
You've been shot?
My dad's been shot.
Okay, hold on just a second. Are they still there?
No, they left.
They left? Did they come inside the house?
Yeah.
Okay, where were you shot at?
Downstairs.
No, on your body. On your body, where have you been shot?
What?
On the call, a man was saying that someone had broken into his house and shot him and his family. He didn't know who they were, but he had been shot in the hoof, in the foot, a mere flesh wound. Now, the rest of his family weren't so lucky, but he didn't know at this point whether they were alive or dead.
Okay, how old are you?
20?
Do you know who it was that broke in?
What was that?
Do you know who broke in?
No.
Okay. Did you get a look at them?
No.
Could you tell if it was a man or a woman?
Man?
A man? Could you tell if they were white, black, Hispanic? That's okay if you don't know. Just stay on the line with me, okay? What's your first name?
I'm Alex.
Do you remember what color shirt or what color hair this guy had? Anything about him?
Black?
He was just there trying to stop the bleeding in his foot. He couldn't really describe who had broken in. When asked if they were wearing black or were themselves black, he gave a yes? Question mark?
You think it was a black male or a black shirt?
Both?
Any guns, knives, anything like that?
No, but there's a
No.
gun on the floor.
There is. That's not yours?
It's ours, but we got shot by it.
So he took your gun and shot you?
Yes.
Okay.
He said the person who had come in had used the Jackson's own rifle against them. Other than that, it was just a lot of grunts as his foot was a little sore. In the meantime, police surrounded the house. Dogs, you name it.
This is sounding bullshit. Yeah, and he would be making a shitload of noise. I'm just gonna knock. He's shot? Oh, what the fuck?
We got ammo out here.
Start another 50 feet.
Justin. Who's this down here?
Hey, who are you?
Dad. Is that your dad?
What happened?
What happened? There. He came down. There was a man. Who shot your
Who else is here?
My sister.
She's back?
Yeah, she's in her room.
Is she okay?
I think so.
Alexander was found lying on the floor, the rest of his family murdered, and the murder weapon, a rifle, still lying on the floor. One body, Alexander's father, Jan, was lying in the basement living room near him, shot 5 times, twice in the head. In her own bedroom, Alex's sister, Sabrina, 19 years old, lying dead on her bed. She too had been shot in the chest and then in the face. And finally, the mother, Melissa, upstairs in the master bedroom, shot twice in the head. There was blood in Alex's bedroom, and he would later say that after he had been shot, he crawled into his room to get his phone to dial 911.
Anything about anybody yet? I'm assuming it's mom, dad, and sister. Okay. No names. Okay. first. Next one. Right here. Are you going to
shell casings right here?
Okay.
We have confirmed all three.
Yeah.
His daughter in the back.
Yeah.
Now, Alexander Jackson, he grew up in a very loving home. By all accounts, great family, very healthy, just really one of those, they just took care of each other. In the years since they'd been living in that house in Cedar Rapids, there were 0 police reports. The police had never been called to that house until now. As I said, the family, they were great together. You see the pictures, they would travel together, they would have dinner together, board game nights, everything. Kind of things I try to avoid. Alex was 1 year older than his little sister, Sabrina, and the family had moved to the area from Oregon about 10 years previous. As I said, all the neighbors would say, in the decade they had lived there, there had never been any indications of anything. No issues, they were perfectly fine neighbors. They were A-okay with me, pal. Both Alex and Sabrina attended the same high school, and both were students at the University of Iowa's College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Alex, a former Eagle Scout.
We're just going to need a lift assist on the male that's injured. The other 3 are DOA.
So who the shit would break into their house, and shoot up the place? A triple homicide we got here, which is a hell of a lot more than what the police were initially called for. What they just thought it was going to be a burglary and some your shots have been fired, not executions. 3 of them. See, the call was made at 8:23 a.m. Alex said he called literally 30 seconds after this intruder fled from the home. Now he said that morning, middle of June, so a hot summer's day, he said he'd been sleeping out that morning, in his little sleeping bag on the sun porch with their dog, Hero, but he woke to gunshots. Gunshots coming from inside the house, so he went inside. By this stage, his family was dead, and then in the basement of the house, like, as you can see from the body cam, I call it a basement, but it's not like a dank, dirty basement. It's like it's another floor of the house. It just happens to be under the ground level. The living room was there, bedrooms, Alex and Sabrina's bedrooms were there in the basement. So he walked in there and he saw this intruder standing over his father, Jan, with a .22 caliber rifle, executing him on the ground. Alex, he saw red, sprinted at him, rugby tackled him, they fought, they wrestled, and then they fought over the gun. Alex couldn't say if he fired the gun or this other guy fired the gun, but either way, Alex got shot in the foot. He fell to the ground. This guy booked it, leaving the gun there out of the home.
There was a man?
What man?
A tall man?
How old are you?
20?
Okay.
Now, he wasn't really able to describe this person, which, I mean, you think they had wrestled. I think you'd get a pretty good look. All he could say was he was a black guy wearing black clothing and he had green shoes. Now, later on in the interviews, the police interviews, he'll start to remember a little bit more, a few more details later on. And all over the house were spent shell casings. And no signs of whoever Alex said did this. No signs of forced entry, no signs of stuff thrown around, like a burglary, nothing was taken.
Barber, come in front of me. You come in front of me, Barber.
Yeah.
Brown, you go help Kaczynski, and then we'll take you upstairs.
I'll start here.
Police department! Stand up if you're here!
The dog did a whole scent follow-up thing, trying to find the scent of this intruder, and found nothing. No scent. The dog was like going in circles. The processing of the scene began and would take place over the next few days, searching for DNA of anyone who didn't live there. They questioned neighbors, asked for nest cams, ring cams, any CCTV of the neighborhood. The Jacksons themselves had home security camera. And it showed nothing. Nobody, no stranger, approaching the house, breaking in, unarmed because the weapon they used was the Jacksons' own. Now, behind the couch in the basement living room, behind that couch was a little pile of spent shell casings, indicating that that's where the person was firing from. See, this particular murder weapon, the Jacksons' own rifle, when it fired, the spent shell casings were ejected from the bottom of the gun, so they just fall directly down. Like in a lot of other weapons and rifles, these spent shell casings will be ejected from the top and go spinning out everywhere, but not this gun. So where the spent shell casings were found, you could assume that the shooter was directly above it. And from the evidence, it appeared that Jan Jackson, he'd been in his office upstairs having his little morning cup of joe and his breakfast muffin. Maybe he heard something, he heard gunshots. He started walking down the stairs when the killer, the shooter who was standing behind that couch, where a little pile of spent shell casings were found, opened up on Jan as he was walking down the stairs into the basement. There was bullet holes found in the wall where the stairs was. Jan was shot a couple of times. He tumbled to the bottom of the stairs. There was a blood pile found there. Then this killer walked over Jan, executed him. Then maybe they shot Sabrina before, and that's why Jan went down the stairs, because Sabrina's bedroom was in the basement. But regardless, she was shot from the hallway, and then they walked over again, shot her again, point blank. Then the killer went upstairs to the master bedroom where the mother, Melissa, was sleeping. Again, shot from just inside the door, walked over, shot her again in the face. Whoever did this wanted to be real sure.
Alex, how old are you, Alex? 20? Okay. Can we get you? We're gonna try
Let
and
me
get
sneak by her over here.
sneak by over here. Okay.
All right.
Ready? Okay.
1, 2.
Put your weight on your other foot. Your other
Okay,
foot.
we're at the limp out.
20, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What hospital are you going to?
I don't know.
Do you prefer or?
I don't care.
In the meantime, Alex was taken to the hospital to secure his foot. Gotta make sure you don't bleed out. You know what I'm saying? He was interviewed there, but he was also on a lot of drugs for his foot.
Is that all you want to say? Do you have any other injuries, Alex?
I hope not.
Okay.
Are you able to, is this leg hurt at all?
No.
Are you able to like rotate it in the other? Yeah, so I can kind of see the full extent up here.
I don't understand one.
White man, black man, Hispanic, Asian.
Well, that's not. I know you're wearing a lot of clothes. So he ran at this guy. And what happened? I pushed him. Quite deep. What I pushed. Quite deep. Yeah. Deep voice.
Deep voice.
Gotcha.
What did they say?
Fuck you.
He told the police everything that had happened up until that point. He said that the night before, on the 14th of June, him and his dad had that 22 Browning rifle out, and they were cleaning it together. But then Alex said he'd think the gun was just left out there. His dad still had it when Alex went off to do something else that night. But then clearly the killer entered the house that morning, picked up the gun, and coldly, calculatingly loaded it, fired off. That gun could hold 11 rounds, but more than 11 rounds were fired, so they loaded it that morning, started shooting, loaded it again. That killer left no DNA, and no fingerprints were found on the rifle, other than Alex's. Must have happened after he went inside and wrestled, right? Though he was all very fake. He heard gunshots, went inside, saw a tall black guy wearing all black standing over his father, sprints at him, book goes boom. He thought. Now, there were a number of inconsistencies in Alex's story, though. So he said he was sleeping outside that night with the dog in a sleeping bag, and it was a very hot summer's day, and then he went inside, wrestled, he got shot in the foot, and then he had to crawl into his own bedroom to grab his phone, because he didn't have his phone outside with him. But the phone activity said he probably did have his phone with him, because there was activity on the phone. He'd been Googling things, and he'd been on ifunny.com.
Why would this happen?
think someone was upset with your family?
He couldn't describe the killer until he needed to fit his story. Like, he never said the killer wore gloves until he was confronted with the fact that only his fingerprints were found on the gun. He said he didn't get a look at him, but then he later said, oh, he was wearing a balaclava.
After he shot you, he left?
I think so.
No DNA or scent of this mystery man either, nor CCTV or security footage. And the rifle, the weapon that was used, the murder weapon, the Jackson's weapon, it was so unusual that the investigators, when they were looking into it, and the investigators were all, very familiar with firearms, right, knew all about guns. But when they were looking at this gun, they were like, I have no idea how to load this. The investigators said they had to watch YouTube videos.
You load it simply by the magazine tube comes out the rear here, and you simply put in, I think, 11 or 12 rounds of 22 into the stock. It is a bottom ejector, okay, which is fine, I guess.
To figure out how to load this weapon, when this mystery man broke in, knew immediately how to do it, and did it twice. Palm prints were found on the gun, consistent with Alex Jackson's. Also found was prints on the gun, on the barrel of the gun. They were found on a part of the barrel that would be very consistent with you grabbing the gun, pointing it down, and shooting yourself in the foot. Alex Jackson's.
When we stepped out, we talked to our coworkers. They were up at your house. Your house, the neighborhood, and Alex said the reality is there's not any evidence that anyone else was over at your house. It's okay. It's okay. Alex, do you want to tell us what happened? What really happened?
We're not here to judge you at all. Like I said,
I went downstairs, and the man was there. My father. I got shot. And I think he left. Alex, that's not what the evidence is showing. What do you mean? Like I said, if there had been a person there would be some evidence that he showed up. There would also be evidence that he left, because he's not there now, and there is no evidence for that.
So the person that hurt your family was the center. Okay.
Who? It's not me.
You didn't hurt your family?
No, I would never. I wouldn't.
And the bloody prints, where Alex said he dragged himself into his room to grab his phone after he had been shot. Well, the blood doesn't enter Alex's room as if he had crawled in, but it does exit his room. Alex must have shot himself in the foot in his own bedroom.
I'm okay with the fact that you have been completely honest about this, and you haven't.
Do you want our report to reflect that there was a guy in your house that there's no evidence of? There's a guy in my house. Listen to me. Do you want us to write down in the report that there was a guy in your house, that there's no video of them ever showing up or leaving? Do you want us to put that down, or do you want to give us some sort of an explanation that makes sense? I want the guy for why this happened. When's the first time you thought about this scenario? I didn't do it. Okay? I would never hurt my family. They are important to me. I love them.
We're going to continue to confront you with the inconsistencies, okay? And that's why it just gets to the point where it's like, when is it time to just come clean? You know what I mean? You shot yourself in the foot. Because you have to shoot yourself in the foot.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, but you wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do that either. But you have to, because how can everybody else?
Why would I do something?
To make it look like snooze. You should have kicked the door to make it. Well, I'm just saying, or at least ransacked the house. And you're probably going wishing you would have now.
You still think someone was there? Yeah. Do I know someone was there? Okay, how did they get out?
I can't really remember. Probably the door they came in, or
But they didn't.
there should be 3 counts, first-degree murder.
The day of the shooting, Alexander Jackson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder.
A Lynn County prosecutor called Alexander Jackson a danger to the community. Police say Alexander called 911 at 8:23 Tuesday morning, saying a masked intruder had shot him and his father. When Cedar Rapids police arrived at 4414 Oakleaf Court Northeast, they found 3 bodies in 3 separate rooms. Alexander went to the hospital with a gunshot wound to his foot.
What is your name, sir? You may proceed, Mr. Baker. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Jackson, criminal complaints been filed against you, accusing you of the crimes: count 1, murder in the first degree; count 2, murder in the first degree; count 3, murder in the first degree. Your Honor, based on the facts of this case, it is clear that this was a horrendous murder. It was more than just a murder, it's an execution of the defendant's mother, father, and sister. Furthermore, the defendant's concocted story of a phantom burglar shows that the defendant acted out of malice and calculated intent to get away with these murders, and he's clearly a danger to the community. For those reasons, Your Honor, the state requests the bond as mentioned.
His bail was set at $3 million. He went on trial in early 2023. He pleaded not guilty. The defense argued that this case was pretty much all circumstantial, and all the evidence was left open to interpretation. And an intruder couldn't, definitively be ruled out. So nobody really knows what could have happened that very day. Just because there's no evidence of something happening doesn't mean it didn't happen. This was a family who loved each other and celebrated each other's accomplishments. The home was littered with family photos. Why would he have done this if he had indeed done it? Right? Why would he? No motive has ever been proven in this case. If indeed, although evidence was pointing back at Alexander Jackson, his story was inconsistent and made no sense, and all the evidence just pointed directly back at him. But why? The defense said it was more likely that this was an actual intruder. This was an affluent part of town. The houses were all, pretty nice, right? And their houses weren't too close to each other, so a killer could easily kind of come and go. And another thing was that the camera at the back of the Jackson house, they did have a security camera there, but it wasn't working.
Usually you break into either steal the stuff, or in this case, kill people.
Yeah. Well, but that occurs, that people come into a home and kill people, right?
Right, but my big problem with that is when you do that, you bring a weapon.
Well, who's to say that this intruder didn't have a weapon?
Why would you use their weapon if you brought one?
Because that's a better weapon. You told Alex that people don't just come in and kill people, but that's exactly what happened in Idaho, right?
Yeah, but what I really meant was that people don't just come in and kill random people.
They don't what?
Random people.
Like
those people in Idaho aren't random. He was stalking one of them.
Well, that's, again, your theory.
Well, I got that source from the news.
Okay, all right, we'll go with that. But there have been cases that people just came in and killed people randomly. If I get your testimony straight, Mr. Jackson shoots himself in the foot in his bedroom. Is that what you're saying?
It looks that way.
There's no bullet found in that bedroom, was there?
No.
No shell casing found in that bedroom?
No, but he also had a shell casing in his hand at one point.
When he crawled,
there's no bullet found where he claimed he was shot himself, or I'm sorry, where he claimed this shot occurred.
So you think that after he shot himself, he took the firearm back up the hallway and dropped it off on the other side of his father. Is that your theory?
That's exactly what I think happened.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Maybe somebody could have come in that way. And the police dog that we can see in the body cam going around, it didn't pick up any scent of any supposed killer. Right, well, as you can see in the body cam... The dog was panting a lot, which the defense said could have interfered with its scent tracking capabilities. And also this dog wasn't used to tracking on concrete and gravel. It was like a forest dog. The defense called witnesses who said they never saw him lose his temper, act out of anger, misbehave, nothing. A friend said he was laughing and joking the night before when they were playing Halo together online. The motive that has been offered in this case, quite simply it comes down to this. When Alexander Jackson said this, when he shot himself in the foot, again.
How do you support yourself right now? How do I support myself? Financially. Yeah. Who pays for your Chick-fil-A? Well, my parents, yes. I'm 20 years old. Yeah. You have a conversation with your dad about you need to go find a job. Yes. Since he started something. What did he tell you? Well, that's just probably a job.
His father, Jan Jackson, told Alex he needed to get a job or he needed to move out of the house. That's it. And so with that, they argued that the motive was Alexander Jackson's parents were forcing him to get a job, one of those dang dirty jobs, or they were going to kick him out of the house, which is like a common threat. I don't think they would have followed with actually kicking him out of the house. So they say, well, it's been offered that, well, Alexander Jackson, he saw only one way out, and that was via the .22 caliber rifle, concocting this whole story of an intruder breaking in and killing his family, and then he shot himself in his own foot to make it seem like he was a victim too. At the time of the murders, Alexander Jackson had $30 in his account. But other motives? Perhaps even...
or some sort of a motive. Was it inheritance? They have no proof that Alex would inherit. They have not testified about a will, whether there is a will, whether there isn't a will, what it says, or whether Alex even knows. There was some question about the sister being bisexual, that somehow that would be something motive for Alex to kill his sister. Well, you hear Alex later in the interview when they start questioning Alex's sexuality. Alex said, I'm not, I'm straight, but if I wasn't, my parents would be open to that. He says that right in there. It's not a motive. His grades dropping during COVID, that's a reason to kill your whole family? Or he didn't have a job? How many kids didn't? How many kids had their grades drop during COVID? And Alex said that his father was treating him fairly, that his father was letting him make his own mistakes.
A common and reoccurring theme that you're going to find as you go back over your jury instructions is that in multiple places in those instructions, multiple different instructions, it says that you as jurors are to use your reason and your common sense. It does more than say it. It demands that you as jurors, when you go through this evidence and evaluate it and give weight to it, that you use your reason and common sense. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that as you process that evidence and as I sit down and Mr. Johnston stands up and then I get to talk to you one more time, that as you're evaluating everything that you've seen over the last couple of weeks that's been presented in this case using your reason and common sense, you're going to find that the defendant's story does not make sense, that it is unreasonable to believe the story told by the defendant. And I'm asking you now, and I'm going to ask you again when I stand back up, that when you go back and you deliberate over this case and you process the evidence in this case, that you as jurors return verdicts, murder in the first degree, for the murder of Jan Jackson, the murder of Melissa Jackson, and the murder of Sabrina Jackson.
At the end of the trial, Alexander Jackson was found guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder.
All right.
as to each of the 3 counts. Form of verdict 2 has been executed. We, the jury, find the defendant, Alexander Jackson, guilty of the offense of murder in the first degree.
He will be sentenced in early March. His convictions, they guarantee a mandatory life sentence without parole. So, farewell, Alex, we hardly knew you. And Sinead, that ends this old story. Man's the end of Alex Jackson. A story with a lot of holes in it, that's for sure. Story with a lot of inconsistencies, kind of on both sides, depending on which side of the argument you come down on. It's an odd one, made even odder by everything the suspect did, but it's also so odd, it's doesn't make any sense. It seems just ridiculous that he did actually go through with it. It's bizarre, it's insane, and it's the end of the Jacksons of Cedar Rapids. Before we go, folks, I just want to say again, if you enjoyed this whole video, please check out the That Chapter podcast. If you enjoy my videos, you will certainly enjoy the podcast, where I'll be telling all sorts of crazy stories and bizarre plots. All the sort of stories I love to tell you, and hopefully you love to hear.